Let's talk about Wagner. Where to start with this? It's such an enormous topic. Wagner is one of the huge figures of the 19th century, unquestionably huge, not just because he was a composer of enormous talent. I mean, really as important as Beethoven, but at the middle of the 19th century, he's a colossal figure in terms of the history of music, but he's also a significant figure in terms of drama and German literature and indeed philosophy. He's one of these extraordinary people, I don't think of anyone quite like him actually, who's covering a lot of ground in one creative enterprise. And Tristan and Isolde may now be the most famous work, or perhaps it's the Ring Cycle, but Tristan is enormously famous, and it's famous because of lots of things. But in popular terms, it's the chord that seems to have really triggered people's imagination, this idea of an unresolvable chord or a chord that can't be described. And to some extent that is true. So I think before I go into the chord itself, let's try and give a bit of context for why Wagner even needed to write a chord and what's he trying to achieve. And to do that, we have to do a bit of a backstory. Wagner had taken part in the 1848 revolution in Dresden, where he was a significant figure. He was director of the opera house in Dresden. He had a very grand position in the city, but he decided, because of his what might be called proto-Marxist sympathies at that time, extremely left-wing revolutionary interests, and he was friends with several leading anarchist figures of the period. He got involved in this revolution and he had to leave Dresden because the revolution failed. His wife was absolutely furious. They'd always had a slightly up and down relationship anyway, and she was furious because he'd thrown everything away, she thought. And indeed, he kind of left her in Dresden and went off to live in Zurich, mainly to work there. So from then on, they were barely a couple. Wagner was not only engaged in revolutionary politics, as if that wasn't enough, he was also trying to rethink the entire meaning of opera and what it should be. And he wrote a number of important and influential essays around that time before embarking on the great enterprise of his life, which was the Ring Cycle, a new definition of how opera should function, complete with an entire network of leitmotifs, symbolic musical objects that bind together all the musical fabric in a very rich and extraordinary and deeply symbolic way, so that the drama would be underpinned by symbols. It was such a radical idea that it had an absolutely immense impact on the literature of the period, or of the next generation, especially in France, where the symbolist period grew out of Wagner's ideas, essentially.